Good morning, everyone. Today we'll be presenting the history of the USSR and Russia. So I'll start by presenting the Russia. Russia is the largest country in the world, and it includes 11 time zones with various of regions, religious, and traditions. In Russia, they include more than 190 nationalities, which makes also one of the biggest in the world. About climate and agriculture. Russia is rich by oil and gas and minerals. And every year, Russia sells billions of dollars of gas and oils to Europe for their energy. But after the start of the Russia-Ukraine war, Europe made sanctions against Russia, so it made hard to get benefits from selling the oils and gas, because the neighbors of the Russia in Asian countries I think already has their own resources, so it was hard and still hard for them to get some benefits, because it makes the biggest part of their profit in their economy. Russia is also rich in coal, diamonds, gold, nickel, copper, and etc. in the region like Siberia. It's a cold region, but it's very famous for its rich of resources. So now I'll talk about the historical development of Russia. The first history of the Russian Empire began with the expansion by Ivan the Terrible. He started to moving fast into Siberia and also to Caspian Sea, including Caucasus regions like Chechnya, Dagestan, and etc. So in 19th century, Russian Empire started to expand their borders to Central Asia and other regions to get power. This expansion helped Russia to defeat the Napoleon's army, which was one of the hardest, I think, victory in Russian empire history, and also at that time European countries were also defeated by Napoleon. Yes. And Soviet Union was officially established in 1922, but started with revolution in the end of the First World War by Lenin, Engels, and others too. Soviet Union got collapsed into several republics and established Russian Federation in 1991, which broke a communist system and established new capitalist market economy. The Soviet Union system included collectivization and famine. In collectivization and famine, there was a regime in which everybody should be in the same level of their inheritance, and every farms and fabrics should be in the government system. There was no any businessmen and like this. And during USSR period, there was a Cold War race between USSR and US. So So to gain more power, USSR started to creating and making their economy and military bigger to be against with US, and they created a lot of atomic bombs. Also, we know that Chernobyl accident, because of atomic station explosion, environment got a huge damage in the start of 1980s. It also damaged European countries. So the post-Soviet impacts after the collapsing Russia, USSR, Russia got a new period of time in which their economy should be like built up again with new system, with market-oriented one economy. So firstly, they stuck in trouble, like they didn't had any like enough food for their people. So they actually asked the U.S. Firstly from their president, and they, I think, sent it to Russia chickens, yeah, which was a help to remove the starvation.
Good morning, everyone. So now I'm going to talk about the 21st century Russia and its region, their economy, their demographic society, and also about their geography. So I'm going to start from the collapse of USSR and how their situation is now today. So first, about the post-Soviet transition. So after the 1991, when the Soviet Union collapsed, Russian Federation was formed. It was with 22 republics, they formed the Russian Republic, and then Boris Yeltsin came in power, who took the process of shock therapy. So the two main characteristics of shock therapy is, first, they distributed vouchers so that the normal citizens can obtain into their national sectors, for example, like the oil fields, mining fields, etc. And then there was some businessmen who were so wealthy that they could lend money to the Russian government. And after the situation of shock therapy, the Russian economy was in collapse. So, for example, they were facing a huge inflation, about 2,000%, which gave the opportunity for some of the elite businessmen to rise. So the normal people, they couldn't afford their living condition properly, so they sold those vouchers to those businessmen, and those businessmen also lent money to the Russian government, so in condition of temporary ownership to their sectors. And this gave rise to the oligarchs, which we know today, who have immense amount of wealth and power in the Russian society. Then they started the early 1990s democracy, and Boris Yeltsin was the president in 1991 to 1999. And after that, the Putin era started. So Putin used to be a former KGB operative who worked in East Germany when the Soviet Union collapsed. So during that time, he said that the collapse of the Soviet Union was the biggest geographical tragedy in the history of mankind. So he became president in 2000. During his time, he had one advantage, that during that time, oil prices were going up and up. And since Russia has a lot of oil and gas reserve, they became extremely rich during that time. Like their economy was growing at 7%. And this made the Russia global financial hub. So he became second president in 2012 till present day. And in 2008, after the oil price dropped, their economy was starting to decline. And then they annexed Crimea, the part of Ukraine, in 2014, which gave a lot of sanction on the Russian territories. And their economy consists of natural resources. 80% of exports are exports of natural gas, and oil is kind of like the 30% of the government revenue. They still don't have a huge private sector. For example, their economy still relies on selling cheap oil and gases, but they're trying to diversify into more manufacturing and also service sector. And their demographics and society. So their population peaked at around 1991 during the Soviet era at 149 million, but by 2016 it was 142 million. The fertility rate is about 1.6 children per woman. The rate should be above 2.1% so that they can sustain a good population growth. They have high death rates, for example, because of alcoholism, heart diseases, which makes the average life expectancy of Russian men at around 66 years old, and for the Russian woman it's at around 78 years old. Their ethnic makeup consists of 77% Russian, 3.8% Tatar, and also Chechens, and also there are 150 plus minorities. So their biggest religion is the Russian Orthodox Church, which we influence, but since they used to be atheist republic, and only about 15 to 20% people follows this religion, and Islam is at second at around 15%. They also have Buddhist and other ethnic religious societies. So their core culture, the Russian language is a Slavic Indo-European language using the Cyrillic alphabet. They have about 100 languages spoken, 27 officially recognized, and so the Russians' four major regions. The core is the European Russia, which is exactly near the Ural Mountains. So the Ural Mountains work as a barrier between the Europe and the Asia. So to the European side, they have Moscow and St. Petersburg. Both of the cities are the two of the biggest cities of the Russian Federation. They also have the Europe's biggest river, the Volga River, which has been the key transport artery since the days of the Russian Empire. They also have the eastern frontier, the Kuznets Basin, the Novosibirsk, and they are the mining and heavy industry zones. They also have Lake Baikal, which is one of kind of like, how do I say, an extremely important area which holds 20% of the world's liquid fresh water. So Siberia. So Siberia is exactly close to the Arctic area, so it's immensely big. It's exactly the size of the US, but they have a really low population of only 15 million because the life in Siberia is not easy. For example, during the Russian Empire's time or also during the Soviet times, those who were considered as the enemy of the state, they were sent to Siberia to work in the oil, gas fields, or also the metal timber fields. They also have taiga and tundra, piece of white space, pine forest. They also have Kamchatka Peninsula, which has 20 active volcanoes. Next, the Russian Far East. So Russian Far East has one of the biggest cities, Vladivostok, which is gateway to the Pacific market. So this city used to be closed only for the military purpose, but after the Soviets came into power, they made it a city so they can link it to the countries like China, Korea, Japan. They also have the Trans-Siberian Railway, which is, I think, 6,600 kilometers. It's one of the biggest railway networks on the earth. They also have the Sakhalin Islands, which is also high in oil and gas reserve. And southern Russia and the Caucasus. So it's the mountain corridor between the Europe and Southeast Asia. They have high ethnic and religious diversity, Islam and Buddhism, Orthodox, etc. So they have Chechnya who fought their independence in two separate occasions. So the problem with Chechnya is Chechnya didn't have a separate Soviet republic. For example, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, they were created special Soviet republic so they can govern themselves. Chechnya had a different ethnic identity, but they couldn't get their own socialist republic. So after the fall of Soviet Union, they tried to get their independence, but the problem was Russian leadership at that time thought if we give independence to Chechnya, the other 21 republics will also try to gain independence from us. So this is why this started the wars in Chechnya. It first started in 1994 and 1996, which resulted in a stalemate, and after that in 1991 to 2009, which gave Chechnya as a capital Grozny the title of the world's most destroyed city. And next we have Transcaucasia, so it had its independent states with historic Russian ties. For example, Georgia, which is really close to Russia, they have been fighting war, separatist war with Russia in the regions of South Ossetia, the Abkhazia. So the problem with this region is during the Soviet era, they had Russian living population in that area. But after the fall of Soviet Union, those Russian-speaking people, they couldn't go back to Russia. They had to stay in Georgia, and they have always wanted to be part of the major Russia. But Georgia couldn't hand them over, so they have been fighting wars in Georgia. Officially, Russia had withdrawn troops from Georgia, but they still fund and give weapons to the separatist movement. They also have Armenia, the first Christian nation, and they also have Azerbaijan, which is full with Caspian Sea oil, gas, but the way they extract those resources, they have created severe pollution issues. So based on this, I think that in conclusion, I'd like to say that Russia's 21st century power rooted in energy export and centralized state control, demographic decline threatens long-term growth, vast natural resources, equals economic opportunity, but environmental risk, ongoing tension in Caucasus and with the neighboring states shape their foreign policy. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, now the Q&A sessions. Would you like to come in here? Yeah. Any questions? Okay, I'll start. So could you elaborate on what was going on when they were going through the transition, especially during the Yeltsin reform? Because and then afterwards, when Putin came to power, the rise of oligarchs. Because I think that transition period is very important, not only for the Russian transition, but a lot of post-Soviet sort of states had gone through the same problems. So you mentioned about a lot of the finances and a lot of the economic power actually were given to a few oligarchs, right? And then the Russian ruble, the price, the value of the Russian ruble sort of became really, really low, so that, like a lot of people actually who put their money in the banks, they lost their value, right? So, but then the housing prices skyrocketed, so a lot of people actually lost their homes. So if you can elaborate on the period more, I think that applies to other sort of countries going through the same transition.
So after the fall of the Soviet Union, what happened is during that time, during the Soviet Union time, the housing used to be provided by the Soviet government, also the healthcare. But after the fall of Soviet Union, everything became private sector. So what they did was, in order to get money for the economy, they handed out vouchers, which was kind of like a share to the national economy. And also, since they didn't have any money because of the inflation, they took loans from those elite businessmen. And in return, those businessmen got a share of the ownership of their minefield, their oil field, and stuff like that. So what they did was, since the inflation was really high and the people couldn't buy their daily necessities, they sold those vouchers to those elite businessmen. And those elite businessmen that were giving out money to the government, they somehow conspiracy with the government on corruption and everything, and they took over a lot of their national economy. So after Boris Yeltsin was removed from power and Putin became president, Putin saved Yeltsin from corruption charges. So it's kind of clear they work this together. For example, Putin still has a lot of influence on the oligarchs. The top leadership still control all their wealth and everything.
I think it's going on in a lot of countries. So especially during the time of transition, there are few elites, especially in the finance or the economies. were trying to take control from the government. When the grip of the government actually dwindled, there arise this like few elites, and it's actually going on like in the U.S. as well. They have a lot of like rich people, and a lot of my friends actually say that it's difficult for them to buy homes nowadays because the real estate prices skyrocketed, and then with their income they can't buy the house. But then they have to pay a lot of rent, like monthly rent. So even though their wages are high, they can't afford to own the homes. So it's happening in the U.S. It's happening in South Korea as well. And I think as the country is transitioning, you really have to see who's actually gaining the power, especially in the economic sector. And then they are the people who are trying to control the prices of the goods, and also especially with the currency. They're trying to manipulate the currency so that they can garner a lot of profits out of the reforms and changes. So I want you guys to be aware of this transition, because I think it's going to happen a lot in your countries as well. Because a lot of you guys, the countries of where you're coming from is going through transitioning, and you have to see who's going to get the power out of the reforms. All right. Okay. Any other questions?
In the first takeaway, you said that Russia's 21st century power is rooted in energy exports and centralized state control. For other countries, these energy exports might not be an option because they don't have that much minerals. But the centralized state control, can that be ideal for other countries to follow through so that they can reach where Russia is right now? They are really powerful at this moment.
The Russian centralized power is kind of like autocratic. Like it's not ideal for any democracy. For Russia has like 22 republics. Also, like example is Chechnya. Like Chechnya wants to be independent. They have different types of ethnic groups, different type of society. But you cannot force the same type of control that Russia has in Moscow or also in Chechnya. So what I think is it's not ideal for a bigger country like Russia, but for example, like smaller countries like Bangladesh, I think it's best to have like tough central control. But countries big as Russia, it's better to have independent federal governments.
We have one Chinese student, right? Would you like to comment on this presentation?
Majority of Chinese people think Russia is not China's enemy, and I think we don't think Russia are our allies or something like that.
Oh, you don't think Russians are your allies?
Yeah, we don't think so.
Oh, interesting. Putin came to I don't know the English expression for the big event that occurred like last month. Yeah, in Beijing. It was a 열병식. I know that expression in Korean, but there was a huge event organized by Xi Jinping, and Putin was invited as the guest on the right side of the Xi Jinping, and then Kim Jong-un was on the left hand side. So I thought the Chinese were considering Russia and the North Korea as like their biggest allies. Did you actually learn about your modern history during the Chinese history during the Cold War in your school?
Yeah, we think so.
All right, okay. So did you actually learn that you guys actually followed the Russian sort of model, or you just followed the Mao actually just implemented the, the, the communist system? Or like how was the Chinese interpretation of the communist system during the Cold War era?
We don't think we 100% follow the old tradition of the USSR's way, and we trying to say modernization is a way to new like to trying to more people to new China's way. Like that.
All right, great. All right. Okay, so you're from Uzbekistan, right? So because it was under the sphere of influence. I want to hear about your personal opinion of what you have learned from your textbooks or like history. Yeah.
Like Russian influence.
From your country's perspective, because I think it's very important. Yeah. So this textbook is written by American professors. So it's mostly American interpretation of the history, the Russian history or the Soviet Union history. So I would like to hear your opinion. Yeah.
So I actually studied at Russian school. So.
Oh, you studied in the Russian school.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
So like I got like more like influence of Russia. I can say like that because of books, everything in Russian, like teachers in Russian teachers, and they have like different ideas about like politics, and also I think nowadays Uzbekistan has less like friendship with Russia,
All right.
but during our first president, like we got more like common things. We had better friendships, but now like also in Russia they started to hate maybe other post-Soviet Union countries people.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, some people, but not everybody.
All right.
But
The
they had some-
Russians living in those countries.
Yeah, immigrants or just citizens, even
Oh.
citizens. Because of nationality, maybe they think like they like not so good, like discriminations. Yeah.
So how does your history textbook or how does the text that you studied in your Russian school describe Gorbachev? Because the Western scholars and Western sort of politicians describe Gorbachev very positive. Because he was the person who actually caused all the I mean he didn't actually like destroy the Soviet Union as a regime, but then he was the one who provided all the reforms that led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. So their description of Gorbachev or under Stalin.
Oh, Stalin. Actually, Stalin, I was so like he was one of the biggest. He was like worse maybe Hitler because in the start of the their World War II, they knew that like Nazi Germany will attack Soviet Union, but he didn't took any actions. He should have sent their troops to the borders, but he didn't do anything.
That's why Russia was able to win.
Oh,
In a way, that's
Yeah.
another interpretation. Yeah.
Yeah, but we lost like a lot of people.
Yeah, people,
in
yeah.
that war. Stalin is not a good figure. I think maybe after Khrushchev came to the state, he like made opened like against Stalin's regime. So and also Gorbachev, yeah. Gorbachev, I think personally, he destroyed the USSR because he tried to change the communist system into like Republican democratic system. So because of him, he started reforms in late 1980s, in 1985, and it doesn't was bad in action. So the country started to be independent. Firstly, like Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and then other states also started to be independent. And I forgot the place name. The former presidents of the states they made meeting and they like established of the new republics. So I think Gorbachev was the main reason of the destroyment of USSR. Yeah, and hopefully he died 2 years ago.
No. No one hopes for the death of any person, but yeah. Okay, any other questions? I need some questions from female students. Guys? Girls? Her Islam, yeah.
Actually, it's related to like economic power. Like Russia has bigger lands. Like even though like most of the lands they can use, but they have also a lot of natural resources. Yet after all these years, they failed to reach like one of the top 3 economy in the world. They have like invested a lot of money into their like military or weapon system, but still they couldn't reach the economic superiority in terms of like economic power. Why do you think it happened actually?
So I think like natural resources is not always guarantee of your economic development. I can say like even African countries or also in Central Asian countries they have the more resources than European countries. I think the right way to improve the economy at hand is better than just selling their natural resources. And because of that, many like countries, for example, Japan, they don't have any resources. They built a nice modern economy based on modern systems and modern market, but not just selling. They just buy it and they just produce it, and they got more benefits than other, like let's say Russia and other countries. Also, Turkmenistan, they have like third or second biggest country with oil reserves, but they are still authoritarian country like North Korea. So, yeah.
You guys have to remember that even the prices of the natural resources, they're determined by the market in London and in New York. You know, all these like precious metals, silver, gold, all these natural resources, and you know, even oil prices, they're all determined by the people who participate in the market. So it's actually the people, the financial people who actually they're the ones that the Western from the Western establishment. They are the ones who control the oil prices and stuff. So when the oil prices skyrocketed, you know, Putin actually benefited, but when it actually goes downfall, I mean, the whole country's economy is like dwindling. So that's why you really have to see hard. I mean, it's not only about how much resources they have, but you know how the prices of those natural resources are being manipulated in the financial market. It depends more on the financial markets than you know how well the country can do, because it's being a lot of times it's being manipulated. The silver prices, the gold prices nowadays is actually rising, but silver prices are rising as well, but it's not as like high as in gold prices because it's being manipulated by the financial people in London and New York. So like you guys, I really want you guys to be aware of how those prices are being manipulated and you know, how those prices are actually affecting the country's economy. So say Putin was trying to I actually think that he's a good politician. He's a good leader because he actually stabilized the whole economy. Russia is a big country, and you've heard about BRICS, right? You know, they're actually trying to form their own sort of confederation to have a different currency. And because, you know, these BRICS countries, they hold a lot of US Treasury bills. So they bought dollars with their precious metals or with their natural resources. But when there was a war in like Afghanistan, where there's all this like political sort of interventions going on, the U.S. government has a right to stop the use of the treasury bills. So Russia bought a lot of U.S. treasury bills, but they can't use it. They can't actually transfer it into money because the U.S. government actually blocks. So a lot of, especially because you guys are from the developing countries, so you really have to see how the international trade and international market, especially the financial market, they are connected very deeply as to influence the economy of the one country. And I think the transitions that Russia had gone through, especially the fall of the Soviet Union, like starkly describe how a country can survive, because it's not only about the downfall or the rise and fall of the Soviet Union, the Russia, but it's actually being affected a lot by the outside forces, and you guys have to see those relations. Okay, any other question? We need one more question from a female student. Nobody? What? Do we have anyone from Uzbekistan?
Yes.
Oh, well, you're not. Any female? Would you like to ask questions?
Not asking, but I was
Commenting?
Commenting.
All right. Okay.
Kind of not commenting to the presentation because there is nothing unclear about.
All right.
US
Yeah, it was
side.
very well done. Yeah.
It was really well done, and they gave really good information. And like I was going to comment your question, which you asked from the Abdullah about the like Uzbekistan, like people's perspective about the USSR style India.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of we have dark history between Russia and USSR, like as they mentioned, like especially Stalin, there was Kulak system. Kulak system was kind of forcefully like taking the people from like our country like to then other destinations, just like making them work just like by force, and also kind of killing the educational people, like this kind of systems. We have really bad history about the Afghanistan war. The USSR, like they fought in Afghanistan, but they used our people, like they took.
Really?
I mean, how to say, most of the part of the army of the USSR included Uzbeks, like because.
Oh, it was not the ethnic Russians.
Not totally, like the Central Asians.
Oh, interesting.
The reason why, because even though, like, let's say some Russian or like USSR army was like trapped in Afghanistan, Afghan people were Muslim, like Central Asians were Muslim, like they could just get escape from that situation. Like it is like putting the Central Asians against Afghans. It was also one horrible strategy of the USSR.
Right.
Like in our textbooks, we read these things as a horrible history. But still, like I have to admit one thing: Russia, like with its history, it's bad. Yeah? But I must mention that Russia is also the most important country for our economy right now.
Yeah.
Because we are exporting like our most of the goods to the country. Like US is far away from us. We cannot just make trade with them. Europe is far away from us. So we like Russia is also still important, but most of the people of our country hate.
So this is a very good comment because a lot of the texts, they're written by someone who don't have interests, like personal interests in the history, so they actually omit a lot of details. So he actually pointed out a very important fact. The soldiers were Central Asians, they were not ethnically like Russians. So actually the government actually fight. So that's why there's so many ethnic conflicts in the Middle East, but if you hear the histories, it's like very confusing. Because they were colonized by the British, all these European powers. So it's actually the European powers which made them fight one another, which made all these like ethnic groups fight one another, and that's why we still have a lot of problems with residing. So from your perspective, I think it's very important that you know the details and the knowledge about what happened in the history, but you are able to sort of pinpoint what's missing in the puzzle, what's missing in the big narratives. So these narratives are written by people and who have influence, who have power in the academia. So these are the American professors, these are the British professors, but they don't know the details about like specifically what was going on. So you can actually pinpoint to them. You can actually argue back to them. No, that's what exactly what had happened. So you guys have to see who actually participated in the conflicts. Who actually benefited from the domestic, like the violence. Who actually benefited from the transitioning. And I really want you to when you're presenting, you can actually insert your own opinions. You can actually summarize the textbooks, but I really want to encourage you to insert, to add on your opinions, and your experiences, and most of all, like your perspectives, because I think these are the most important things that you have to contribute in the debate, and these are the things that you can actually make the debates very like multifaceted, like diverse, and I really want this atmosphere, this like open discussion to spring up like more. Okay, all right. One final comment or question from. All right.
I'm from Uzbekistan. If I talk with my grandmother, she has like very different opinions about the USSR, right? And we are the next generation.
Yeah.
She says, no, it was good, we are happy. Because they were not educated at all. And as you mentioned, they killed the knowledgeable person.
The elites, yeah, the intelligentsia.
Yeah, they didn't want people to get like more knowledge and to know their rights and stuff. So we remember the USSR as like have like bad impact on us nowadays, especially. But the older people, they don't have much knowledge about it. So as for Korea's case, Korean people like hated the Japanese government.
Right.
It is the same for us because they took so many things, and yeah, we remember it as a bad impact. But still, they were like kind of contributed to the development, but it was not never needed. It was not for our development. It was for their own good. They had like the subways, they contributed to the infrastructure and stuff, like just Japan did to Korea. Like, but it was not for Korea's development, right? It was for Japan's development.
Yeah.
That is the same. Like they did some contribution, but yeah, it's kind of the same with other colonialization.
Yeah, so generational gap within the country is very important because your grandmothers, or your grandfathers might have different perceptions.
Yeah.
So we have
They
this.
said, like they used to give us free stuff, like free bread, free flour,
vouchers.
and stuff.
Yeah.
They wanted kind of to make everyone equal, and then like trying to make them like feel like, oh, we are happy, we have like everything and stuff. But yeah, it was only the thing that they.
So in history, there's this term called collective memory. It's important to understand this term. So history, there are historical facts. I mean, that's why these primary documents amount to historical facts. I mean, it's what's written there. Like interpretation might differ, but it's exactly what Bogatov said. But also there are perceptions, because it's a story. I mean, it can be her story, but his story. So it's a narrative story. So there are facts, but then more so on the perceptions and interpretation. So when people talk about collective memory, it's more linked with how people perceived of the era or the events or the period. So the collective memory held by the grandmothers, the generation, the people in like 2 or 3 generations before, and the generation, like current generation, vastly different. And it's same in Korea, in any of the countries, you know. So in understanding history, actually facts are important, but maybe more so on the perceptions of the people. And that's linked with the collective memory. So how people remember about the facts collectively. Okay? So this is very important. So that's why I really, when you're presenting, I mean, today's presentation is fabulous. I really like them. But I like the conversation afterwards because I want you to speak out your perceptions, your opinions, your experiences. Because you might have learned like vastly different versions of history in your schools. I learned the very different versions of history, especially during the Cold. I mean, I learned from my Japanese friend that they never learned about history during the Cold War because the Japanese government intentionally eradicated the parts of the history. They don't want their citizens to learn about their history because they think it's not as graceful. So people actually like elongate certain parts of the history, but then like minimize certain part of the history as to present the national history very, according to their purpose. So I mean, that's why there's a term called history wars. I guess you guys, in your countries as well, you guys are like engaged with history wars. So I think learning about this diverse perspectives, diverse experience, very important. All right, so this is very well done. Well done for you guys. Next week we're doing, okay, one more. So next week we're going over Eastern Europe. We have Hassan and Abdullah again in Eastern Europe. Okay. All right. Come on, do it. Okay. Who's not attending the filter next week? Who's not? Who's not attending the filter? What?
Then you can exchange with
I also heard
presentation. Like yes, ada production like
Also, I requested Abdullah. We need to find one more. It's not. It's not attending the filter.
I will check.
Oh, all right. You're not attending the filter.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Hassan, he can, yeah, he can do it.
After that, I failed again to speak. Yeah. 100,000 dropped Zabula.
Like,
Yeah.
Hassan, so you're doing fifth grade.
You can exchange our place?
Yeah. So,
49 minutes. Bro, so you can.
Hassan, you're doing it fifth grade.
Yes, sure.
Akmal and Abdullah doing next week.
Not Akmal.
His turn.
They.
Oh, Dave. Oh, sorry. Dave.
When is it terminated?
Dave. Okay, so next week, Abdullah and Dave.
Yes.
Thank
Give a
you.
pause.
What about mine?
So you're supposed to do fourth week, but you're gone, so you have to choose.
Choose another week. So mine is 5th and 7th. Right?
Fifth
So-
and seventh. Yeah.
That's
You want to do this?
What about? Why you
Chinese. The Chinese, China. Would you like to do China?
Yeah.
How do you say thanks in your language?
Okay.
Which one is difficult? Can I have a look?
In your language.
Alright, so fifth week is Western Europe. Western Europe and US again. Oh yeah, let's just we can would you like to do it twice? Twice? Your name is
Professor,
Mohammed?
can you take paper?
Oh yeah, of course you can.